Hello, and welcome back to Game Review. My name is Caleb Denby, and today I wanted to go over a game near and dear to my heart. This is the game where I actually achieved the National Master title. Let me set the scene for you, okay? So I had a rating, estimated rating, well over 2,200, 2,220 or something, going into the end of this month, where I achieved the title. And all I had to do was not lose to Ryan Deering. Ryan Deering here. All I have to do is not lose. He's around an 1900 USCF player. I know him very well. He's a local here at the St. Louis Chess Club, and he was gunning for me. He wanted to take me out. He wanted to crush my National Master dreams, and I guess we'll see. We'll see how that worked out for him, huh? So in the game, I played d4, and Ryan is usually a QGD player, and I knew this about him. So I was throwing some hints that I had done some deep prep for him. In reality, I was just going to play what I always played, but he was afraid. So he plays c5, and I'm blown away. I'm taken aback at the board. But of course, the Benoni's bad, so I just played the best moves, which is d5, knight c3, and then he did something pretty strange. He played d6, and after e4, he didn't play the move e5. And that's really the only point to doing this move order here. Much better for you Benoni players out there is to start with knight f6, and after white commits to c4, now you can play your Benoni stuff, either with c5 first or e6 first, and now c5. And now white has committed to putting this pawn on c4. It keeps this diagonal closed. It's kind of in the way for some maneuvers for white. It makes b5 a little bit more powerful because you kind of have this pawn to bite onto. And so this move order is much, much better. The only reason really to play this move order is if you're going to do stuff like e5, even on move 2. But Ryan Deering didn't play like this. Instead, he played knight f6. And now after knight c3, I don't have to commit to this c4 move, and it's just a little bit more comfortable for me. With that in mind, let's continue. He plays g6 here. I develop my pieces. He develops his pieces. I develop my pieces. He develops his pieces. And here I decided I liked this knight, because this knight controls dark squares, and this bishop doesn't control dark squares. So why would I let him take this knight with his bishop? I want to keep my knight. I want to put it somewhere nice like c4. I want to control these central dark squares that are very pivotal to the position. So knight d2, we see a trade on e2. Black castles, I castle. Now, black does actually play this e6 move, trying to put some pressure onto d5. I bring this knight to a very natural square on c4. And now black plays this move, queen e7. This move's just a little bit off. Much more natural is to bring like a rook to e8, maybe even bring this knight to e8 and bring it out to c7. Maybe capture on d5 is also very, very standard. Something like this, followed by rook e8, would have been a more normal way of playing. Instead, though, we see queen e7, and this queen just doesn't really belong here. You see queen c7 sometimes. Sometimes you do see queen e7, but this queen on this open file is honestly just asking for trouble if black ever does want to capture on d5. Just asking for a rook to land on the e1 square and kick it away. To his credit, though, he did make a threat. He's threatening to capture my pawn. So I simply play queen f3, stepping out of the threat, adding another defender to d5. Knight f d7 was Ryan's choice, opening up this bishop. But now I get to play this move, queen g3, and already I'm aiming at this d6 pawn, which is a little bit weak. Knight e5 was his choice. And now, for you people who know a little bit about chess, you'll know if you have more space, you generally want to keep pieces on the board. So I wasn't at all really interested in capturing this knight, especially because after bishop takes e5, his pieces are just a little bit more free. The fewer pieces on the board for black, kind of the better, because my space advantage doesn't matter as much. So instead, I played knight e3, avoiding the trade. Knight a6 was Ryan's choice, coming to the c7 square, which is a little unorthodox, but there is a point to it. He wants to expand with b5. But now, I'll ask you at home to find the best move for white. And this is kind of your make or break point here. You have to figure out what white's plan is, what you want to be doing, and it's a very common break in the Benoni. It's worth knowing. So go ahead, pause the video, see if you can find it. Okay, here's the answer. The best move for white here is to go ahead and play f4. And a lot of you at home probably guessed this. f4 is a pretty familiar pawn break. But then, let me ask you here, after knight d7, how many of you thought the point was e5 in the future? Because that's actually not the point here. e5 is a very common pawn break in the Benoni, in Benoni structures, but in this case, we're looking for a different pawn break. In fact, this pawn break is almost more common to my knowledge, and especially in structures like these. The whole point of white wanting to break with a move like e5, or this other move, is that you want to open up files in the center and around black's king. You want to open these files to make use of your extra space, and then create some definite threats, win material, checkmate the king, things of that nature. So in this case, black actually has e5 well under control. There's just too many pieces here. I can't really get e5 in. So the move I want to play is actually f5, and this was the point of f4. It's the point of this knight on e3. It's the point of this rook on f1. You want to play f5 to open up the position in this case. It also forces black to do something pretty drastic about this pawn on e6. So he plays e takes f5. I recapture. Of course, it would be a huge mistake for black to recapture again, because knight f5 is simply kind of winning the game. You don't want to open up the king like this. So instead, we see knight c7 from Ryan. And now I play this move, knight g4. The point being, I kind of want to trap all of black's pieces with this very annoying move, f6. Just a funny line for you. Let's say rook e8. I go ahead and play f6. If you play knight takes, I'll play bishop g5, putting you in an awkward pin. And if you play bishop h8, I get to checkmate you. So this is the point. So in the game, Ryan tried h5, with the idea being that he could capture my knight. First, I play the very nice move, bishop f4. Hitting this pawn on d6, and if you capture me, I'll capture your knight. And so black plays knight to e5, and now perhaps the best move is in fact to capture this knight, but now I can play the very nice in-between move f6. And of course, if you capture my knight, I capture your queen, and this is the main problem here for black. So black has to capture. But now, after captures, white really has his pick of good moves here. Bishop g5 is very tempting, knight e4 is very tempting. I actually chose not the best move, but good enough. Bishop h6, a simple double attack, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. Ryan made the very strange decision to come back to h8. Perhaps the e7 square was a bit better for this queen. But now I simply capture this rook. And after rook takes, knight e4. And the threats are kind of mounting around the black king. The end is near. We see knight takes d5, rook a d1, h4, queen g5. Once again, really piling up on these dark squares. Knight b4, and now after rook takes d6 and knight c2, we see knight f6 check, king g7, and I get to pick up this knight. And checkmate is very, very near. And this is actually where Ryan decided to resign. So I succeeded. I did not lose to Ryan Deering. Thankfully, my chess career would have been cast in shame forever had I lost this game. But luckily for me, that didn't happen, and I did manage to achieve my title after this game. So thank you very much for indulging me in this little remembrance on my recent chess career. As always, my name is Caleb Denby, and I will see you in the next episode of Game Review.